The slap landed so hard it echoed off the courthouse columns. Judge Alana Pierce's head snapped sideways, skin burning, ears ringing. Coffee burst from her paper cup and ran in brown rivers down the marble. Her briefcase hit the ground, latches breaking, files scattering across the steps like evidence dumped in a storm. Officer Brian Mercer didn't hesitate. His hand gripped her throat and drove her back into the stone wall. "Filthy animals like you belong in cages," he snarled. His spit hit her cheek. Two uniformed officers stood by the metal detector. One laughed, the other pulled out a phone and started recording. A clerk froze mid-step, then turned away like she hadn't seen a thing. Mercer twisted her arms behind her back and snapped the cuffs shut. The steel crushed in her wrists. She didn't fight. She stared straight ahead at the bronze plaque mounted over the entrance. The Honorable Judge Alana Pierce, Courtroom 2B. 10 feet away, her own nameplate gleamed while she was paraded as a criminal. "Walk," Mercer barked. He shoved her forward. Papers whipped down the steps. A suppression ruling. A sentencing order. A printed calendar with her initials in block letters. The wind carried them across the plaza. He didn't look back. Inside the lobby, he announced it like routine. Suspicious subject. Trespass. Disorderly. Refused to show ID. Aggressive. The magnetometer beeped uselessly. The guards waved them through. No one asked questions. Alana's cheek throbbed, her wrists cut, but her stride never faltered. She memorized faces. She memorized laughter. Every witness to her humiliation. The elevator doors slid shut. Silence except for the buzz of fluorescent lights. Mercer stood close, chest heaving with satisfaction. "You could try your little story inside," he said. "Judges don't like liars." Her lips barely moved. "Neither do I." Second floor. The doors opened. He shoved her down the hallway. A bailiff looked up, then looked down again, complicit. He pushed her through the door of an arraignment courtroom and dropped her into the defense chair like trash. Her briefcase was tossed on the prosecution's table, still broken, papers bent and stained. The substitute judge, Harold Whitaker, entered. Thin, pale, 60-something. He settled behind the bench without even glancing at her. "What's the matter before the court?" Mercer stood tall. "I stopped this subject outside." She refused to comply, grew hostile, attempted to conceal documents. "Possibly stolen. My body can malfunction, but I have partial phone footage." He played a clip. It began halfway through, showing Alana twisting under his grip, papers already on the ground. No slap. No chokehold. A neat fiction. Whitaker nodded. Understood. The assistant DA, Colleen Hart, walked in with a travel mug and barely skimmed the form Mercer filled. "State recommends bail and a no-contact condition with courthouse grounds," she said like it was a grocery list. Alana lifted her head, cuffs clinking. "Before anything else," she said evenly, "this court must issue an immediate preservation order. All CCTV cameras on the front steps between 8:40 and 9:10. All body cam auto backups. All server logs. And the chain of custody for my briefcase starts now." Mercer smirked. "Work product? For what job?" Alana stared at him. "You'll learn soon enough." Whitaker frowned. "We'll get to that after identification. Name for the record." Alana's voice cut through the room. "You already have it." The bailiff, Jonah Reed, picked up one of the scattered pages from her briefcase. His eyes caught the letterhead. His face drained. He looked at Alana, then at the bronze seal embossed at the top of the document. Whitaker pressed again. "Name for the record, ma'am." Reed's voice cracked. "Your Honor, we may have a serious problem here." The room went still. Mercer leaned on the rail, full of swagger. "She's just another liar." Alana's bruised cheek glowed purple under the fluorescent light. She lifted her chin toward the back wall, where her nameplate gleamed outside the chamber doors. "You dragged me 10 feet from my own bench," she said. The silence was absolute. Mercer moved first. He straightened his uniform, smoothed his tie, and stepped to the witness stand like he owned the floor. "Routine security protocol," he said. "Suspicious subject tried to breach restricted entrance. Refused ID. Became combative." His voice carried the polish of practice. He had told this story 100 times. Judge Whitaker leaned forward, nodding. "And what did you observe?" She carried what looked like stolen court documents. Mercer said, warming to his lie. When confronted, she grew hostile, used profanity, threatened me. The prosecutor, Hart, tapped her pen. Pattern we've seen before, Your Honor. Noncompliance, then claims of mistreatment. Nothing new. Alana sat cuffed at the defense table, silent, cheek bruised, eyes fixed on the bench. She didn't flinch. She didn't interrupt. She let the lies stack like bricks in a wall. From the gallery, Reed shifted on his feet. He held the paper he had picked up earlier, but hadn't shown anyone yet. His knuckles whitened. Did she resist arrest? Whitaker asked. Absolutely, Mercer said. I had to use minimum force to ensure safety. If anything, I showed restraint. His jaw tightened, hiding the tremor in his hand. The stenographer's keys clattered. Every word became record. Hart rose. The state recommends charges of trespass, resisting, and assault on an officer. Bail denied. Defendant is a risk to public safety. Mercer's smirk widened. She even claimed she was somebody important. A judge, a lawyer, who knows? They all try that trick. Maya Chun, still at the back, snapped her head up. A judge? The way the woman carried herself, the cadence in her voice, it clicked. She knew exactly who she was watching. Alana finally spoke. Her voice was low, steady, deliberate. Your Honor, before this farce goes further, I demand immediate access to the CCTV footage from the courthouse steps this morning. Whitaker waved dismissively. Defendant will speak through counsel once appointed. No, Alana said. Her eyes bored into him. I will speak now. Rule 106. Brady obligations. Preservation order. If you deny it, you are complicit in evidence tampering. The courtroom froze. Whitaker's face flushed. He wasn't used to defendants citing federal rules like a seasoned litigator. Mercer barked a laugh. She's bluffing. Reed couldn't stay silent. He took 2 steps forward, voice tight. She's not bluffing. He held up the page. The seal caught the light. The words at the top screamed louder than his voice. United States District Court. HON, Alana Pierce. Whitaker's eyes went wide. Hart's pen slipped from her fingers. Maya closed her notebook and whispered, "Oh my God." Alana leaned forward, chains rattling, her words cutting like steel. Officer Mercer, you just testified under oath that I was trespassing. She let the silence hang. Then, cold and final, you assaulted a federal judge outside her own courtroom. The entire room stopped breathing. Bailiff Reed bent down and picked up one of the loose pages that had fallen from the broken briefcase. He froze. The paper carried the federal seal at the top. The header was clear. United States District Court. HON, Alana Pierce. Reed held it up. His voice was flat. This is Judge Pierce. The courtroom went silent. Judge Whitaker stopped mid-sentence. His gavel hovered in his hand. ADA Hart's pen dropped to the table. The stenographer kept typing, but her eyes were no longer on the keys. Officer Mercer shook his head quickly. No, that's fake. She planted it. This is a setup. Reed didn't move. I've seen this letterhead many times. I've delivered documents to chambers with this header. This is authentic. Maya Chun, the young clerk in the back, stared at the woman in cuffs. The way she sat upright, the way she spoke earlier. It was the same as courtroom 2B. She whispered under her breath. It's her. Alana rose from the defense chair. The chains rattled. Her cheek was bruised, but her eyes were steady. She looked at the bench. Your Honor, I demand an immediate preservation order. All courthouse security footage between 8:40 and 9:10 this morning. All officer body cam backups. All security server logs. Preserve them now. Whitaker adjusted his glasses. His voice was unsteady. These are serious claims. We must verify before. Alana cut him off. Verification is unnecessary. My nameplate is outside this courtroom door. It reads the Honorable Judge Alana Pierce. Every employee here has seen it. I am Judge Pierce. You're holding me in handcuffs inside my own courthouse. Reed took a step forward. His face was pale, but his voice was clear. She's telling the truth. I've worked in her courtroom for years. I have sworn oaths before her bench. I will testify under penalty of perjury if needed. Mercer slammed his hand on the rail. His voice rose. She resisted arrest. She was combative. She screamed at me. She threatened me. Alana turned her head toward him. Her voice did not change. Officer Mercer, you swore under oath that I trespassed. You swore I was combative. Those statements are false. That is perjury. You committed that felony here, in this courtroom, in front of witnesses. The stenographer typed every word, her machine clicking louder than the voices. Hart stood. Your Honor, I request a recess until identity is confirmed. This situation is outside normal procedure. Alana spoke over her. Not a request. Recess now. Evidence must be preserved immediately. Witnesses must be sequestered. If this is not done, I will file emergency motions with the Chief Judge and the Department of Justice today. This court will be part of a federal obstruction case if it refuses. Whitaker looked trapped. His hand shook slightly. Bailiff, maintain order. Court will recess for verification. Reed stepped into the center. His voice was sharp. All rise. Everyone stood. The shift in the room was visible. The clerks at the side tables looked at one another. The two officers who had laughed outside lowered their phones. Hart avoided eye contact. Maya, Chin closed her notebook. Mercer stared at Alana. His face was red. Sweat formed on his forehead. His mouth opened, but no words came. Alana turned to face him directly. Her wrists were still in cuffs. You said I belonged in a cage. When we return, we will see who belongs where. The stenographer typed the words without pause. Whitaker struck the gavel. Court is in recess. The sound echoed across the walls. The gallery was still. Reed approached the defense table. He leaned close to Alana. His voice was low. Your Honor, what do you want me to do first? Alana answered quietly. Go to chambers. Bring my robe. Bring my gavel. Bring them here. Reed nodded. He left quickly through the side door. Mercer walked over to Hart. His voice was tense, but still low enough to hide from the record. She's bluffing. This can't be real. She's just making noise. Hart didn't look at him. She kept staring at the documents on the table. Her lips pressed tight. Maya, Sean approached the bench. She leaned into Whitaker. Your Honor, I know her. That is Judge Pierce. She presides in 2B. I clerk there twice a week. This is not a mistake. Whitaker sank back in his chair. His face was pale. Alana remained standing. She looked at Mercer again. Every word you spoke today is on the record. Every officer who laughed and recorded outside will be identified. Every file you touched will be reviewed. Your career is already over. What happens next decides whether you face 5 years or 20. Mercer's jaw tightened. He clenched his fists but didn't respond. Reed returned 10 minutes later. He carried a garment bag and a wooden case. He walked straight to Alana and set them on the defense table. Your robe, your gavel. Alana nodded. She did not touch them yet. Whitaker stood slowly. He looked at Hart, then at Mercer. Court will reconvene in 15 minutes. The bailiff's voice carried again. All rise. The room stood once more. Everyone watched Alana. The defendant was no defendant. The woman in cuffs was their judge. The gavel hit the block. Recess. The holding room was small. White walls, a metal table, 2 plastic chairs. Judge Alana Pierce sat cuffed to one chair. Her briefcase, broken and bent, lay on the floor beside her. Papers had been stacked roughly by Bailiff Reed before he left to follow her instructions. The door opened. Reed came back in, carrying a long garment bag and a wooden case. He locked the door behind him. His hands were shaking. Your robe, he said. He laid the bag on the table. He opened the wooden case. Inside was a gavel, engraved on the handle. Alana stood. The cuffs rattled. Reed hesitated, then unlocked them without asking for permission. Her wrists were raw, the skin broken. She rubbed them once, then reached for the garment bag. She unzipped it and pulled out the black robe. She slipped it on over her sweater and jeans. The fabric settled. She buttoned it closed. She adjusted the sleeves. Then she picked up the gavel and held it firmly. Reed spoke quietly. I didn't know what Mercer was doing outside. I thought it was just another arrest. I didn't realize. You weren't part of this, Alana said. But you are part of what happens next. Reed nodded. What do you want me to do? Announce me properly when we return, she said. All rise. The Honorable Judge Alana Pierce presiding. Nothing less. Yes, Your Honor. Her phone, taken earlier, was placed back on the table by Reed. The screen showed missed calls and messages. She unlocked it. Dozens of texts from her law clerk in chambers, Janet Morrison. Judge Pierce, where are you? The docket is waiting. There are rumors something happened. Alana typed back. Delay the Peterson matter. Clear my calendar. Something else has priority. Then she scrolled to a contact. Chief Judge Robert Ellison. She pressed call. He answered fast. Pierce, thank God. We've heard rumors. Are you safe? I'm safe, she said. But there is evidence that must be preserved now. Contact courthouse security. Order retention of all surveillance footage between 8:40 and 9:10. Order duplication of all angles. Store copies in separate locations. Ellison's voice was serious. Done. What happened this morning? An officer named Mercer assaulted me outside the courthouse. He put me in cuffs. He testified under oath that I was trespassing. The ADA supported him. The temporary judge accepted it. Every word was false. Silence on the line. Then Ellison, do you need FBI? U.S. Marshals? Not yet. First, preserve the evidence. Second, pull Mercer's entire case history. Every testimony, every arrest, every complaint. Review them immediately. Understood, Ellison said. And Pierce. I'll handle the courtroom, she said. She ended the call. Reed watched her. What's the plan? Alana looked at the door. The plan is to walk back in as who I am, and let the record speak for itself. 15 minutes later, the bailiff outside knocked and opened the door. Court is reconvening. Alana slipped the gavel into her hand. Reed straightened his uniform. He looked at her once, then opened the door. The hallway outside was crowded. Clerks whispered. Officers stood stiff, avoiding her eyes. Word had spread. Everyone knew who was about to walk back in. Inside the courtroom, Whitaker was still in the judge's chair. Mercer stood by the prosecution table. Hart shuffled papers without purpose. Maya Chun sat in the gallery, notebook closed but ready. The room buzzed with tension. Reed stepped through the door first. His voice carried. All rise. Every person stood. Reed's next words were louder. The Honorable Judge Alana Pierce presiding. Gasps ran through the room. Whitaker froze in his chair. Mercer's mouth fell open. Hart turned pale. Alana walked in wearing her robe. She carried her gavel. She moved straight to the bench. She stopped in front of Whitaker. Her voice was calm. Thank you for covering my docket during my delay. You may return to your own. I'll handle this matter. Whitaker stood quickly. He didn't argue. He stepped down, gathered his papers, and left the room. Alana stepped behind the bench. She placed the gavel on the block. She looked across the room. She scanned every face. Then she spoke. Officer Mercer, you may remain standing. He froze. His uniform looked too tight now. Sweat beaded at his temple. Approximately 30 minutes ago, Alana said, you testified under oath in this courtroom. You stated I trespassed. You stated I was combative. You stated I carried stolen documents. You stated you used minimum force. She leaned forward slightly. Do you recall that testimony? Mercer's lips moved, but no sound came. He finally forced one word. Yes. Alana lifted her hand and pointed to the evidence table. Those documents are mine. They belong to this court. They include today's docket, suppression rulings, and sealed filings. They were in my possession legally as part of my duties. She paused. The silence was heavy. You committed perjury, she said. You assaulted a federal judge. You placed me in handcuffs. You dragged me 10 feet from my own courtroom. You lied to the bench and to the record. And every second of it is preserved on surveillance cameras. Hart tried to speak. Your Honor, perhaps we should. Sit down, Alana said. Her voice was sharp. You supported false testimony without verifying facts. You will answer for that later. For now, this proceeding is about Officer Mercer. The stenographer typed each word. Her machine clicked without pause. Alana turned back to Mercer. You told me outside I belonged in a cage. You will see soon enough who belongs where. Reed stood beside the bench, straight alert. Mayachin kept her eyes fixed on Mercer, her pen ready. The officers near the door looked down at their boots. Alana raised the gavel and brought it down once. The sound was sharp. This hearing is no longer about trespass. It is about misconduct, perjury, and obstruction. Officer Mercer will be held for review. Court will recess while evidence is secured. She hit the gavel again. Recess. The room was silent except for the echo. The courtroom reconvened 30 minutes later. Word had spread through the building. Staff filled the gallery. Clerks, attorneys, even maintenance workers slipped inside to see what was happening. The air was heavy. Bailiff Reed stepped to the center. All rise. Everyone stood. The Honorable Judge Alana Pierce presiding. Judge Pierce entered in full robe. She carried her gavel. She walked straight to the bench. She sat. She looked at the room one by one. Then she spoke. Officer Mercer remained standing. Mercer stood near the prosecution table. His face was pale. His eyes darted. Sweat showed on his neck. Pierce began. This morning you testified under oath that I trespassed. You testified that I resisted. You testified that I carried stolen documents. You testified that you used minimum force. Do you recall? Mercer's voice cracked. Yes, Your Honor. Good. Now we will examine the evidence. She turned to Reed. Bring in the monitor. Reed wheeled a large screen to the front. He connected it to a county drive. Pierce nodded. This is security camera 7, she said, positioned at the courthouse steps. The footage covers 8:40 to 9:10. The screen lit up. The gallery leaned forward. The video showed Alana walking toward the courthouse. Coffee in one hand, briefcase in the other. Calm, unhurried. Mercer appeared on screen. He stepped in front of her. He spoke, though the audio was faint. Then the first strike. His open hand across her face. The slap echoed through the speakers. Gasps filled the courtroom. The video continued. Mercer grabbed her throat. He shoved her against the wall. He twisted her arms. He snapped cuffs on her wrists. Her briefcase hit the ground. Papers scattered. Mercer's voice came through the audio. Filthy animals, like you don't belong here. Several people in the gallery covered their mouths. Pierce paused the video. She looked directly at Mercer. Do you see any trespass in this footage? Mercer said nothing. Do you see resistance? She pressed. No answer. Do you see aggression from me? Still silence. Pierce turned back to the screen. Now, camera 9. Different angle. The second video showed the same assault from the other side. Clear audio. Mercer's voice again. Another rat trying to sneak in. The gallery shifted uncomfortably. Pierce let it run. It showed 2 other officers at the door laughing, one recording with a phone. She paused it again. Officer Mercer, explain this. He shook his head. The footage doesn't show everything. It doesn't capture. It shows enough, Pierce said. She turned to Reed. Now, play the body cam backup. Reed opened a new file. The county system automatically saved body cam data every 60 seconds, even if the officer claimed a malfunction. The footage appeared. The angle was from Mercer's chest. His voice filled the room. Look at this one. Think she can walk into my courthouse. Time to teach her a lesson. The screen showed the slap, the choke, the cuffs, all from Mercer's own camera. The gallery erupted in whispers. Whitaker, who had returned to observe from the back, dropped his head into his hands. Pierce let the video run to the end. Then she spoke. Officer Mercer, you told this court your camera malfunctioned. That statement was false. You presented partial phone footage to conceal your actions. That is perjury. That is obstruction. That is evidence tampering. Mercer's lips moved, but no words came out. Pierce turned to the 2 other officers in the footage. Officer Daniels. Officer Price. You both laughed and recorded. You both testified nothing unusual happened. Do you wish to change your testimony? Neither answered. They looked down. Pierce raised her voice. Answer the question. Price whispered, Yes, Your Honor. Daniels nodded. Let the record show both officers retract prior testimony. Pierce ordered. The stenographer typed nonstop. Pierce turned back to Mercer. Do you wish to retract your testimony? Mercer stared at the floor. His voice was faint. Pierce cut him off. You will answer yes or no. Silence. Let the record show the witness refused to answer, she said. Hart, the ADA, stood. Her face was red. Your Honor, the state withdraws all charges against the defendant. This is clearly Pierce slammed the gavel once. Sit down. The state was complicit. You supported false testimony without review. You will answer for that later. The gallery was silent again. Pierce addressed the room. This is no longer an arraignment. This is now a proceeding on officer misconduct, perjury, and assault on a federal judge. Charges against me are dismissed. New charges are under review against Officer Mercer. Reed stepped closer to Mercer. His hand hovered near his cuffs. Pierce looked directly at Mercer. You told me outside that I belonged in a cage. You're about to find out what a cage looks like from the inside. She hit the gavel. Court will recess while custody is arranged. The sound echoed. Mercer swayed on his feet. His attorney had not yet arrived. He stood alone. Reed approached him, hands behind her back. For the first time, Mercer obeyed without a word. The gallery erupted in murmurs as he was led out. Pierce sat still. Her eyes never left him until the door closed. Judge Pierce sat down in her chambers. Chief Judge Ellison was already there with his phone on the desk. Janet Morrison, her law clerk, had a stack of files open. Bailiff Reed stood by the door waiting for instructions. Pierce started without pause. Status of evidence preservation? Ellison answered quickly. All cameras backed up. Multiple angles. 3 servers. Security staff have been ordered to release everything directly to DOJ. They've already been notified. Pierce nodded once. Good. What do we have on Mercer's career? Janet read from the files. 15 years of service. 1,182 arrests. 88% of them against minorities. 469 cases dismissed. 47 complaints filed. Every single one closed as unsubstantiated. Examples, Pierce demanded. Janet flipped through the sheets. 2014, a 17-year-old accused him of planting drugs. Dismissed. 2017, a homeowner reported unlawful entry and assault. Dismissed. 2020, a cardiologist arrested outside his own home. Mercer claimed he didn't belong in the neighborhood. Complaint dismissed again. Pierce tapped the desk with her finger. The pattern is obvious. The statistics are biased. The department did nothing. Her phone buzzed. She answered. Pierce. The voice on the other end was firm. This is Special Agent Hayes, DOJ Civil Rights. We've reviewed your emergency report. A task force is moving now. ETA 20 minutes. Secure all witnesses until we arrive. Pierce replied evenly. Mercer is in custody. Daniels, Price, and Lowell are being held as material witnesses. I'm preparing expansion orders for every officer tied to his unit. Do it, Hayes said. We'll formalize custody once we're on site. The line cut. Pierce looked at Reed. List every officer connected to Mercer's unit. Reed produced a sheet of paper. 10 names. All shift partners over the past 5 years. Orders drafted. Sign them. Pierce said. She scrawled her name across each order without hesitation. Deliver them. They appear tonight. She turned back to Janet. Compile language analysis from his reports. Highlight repeated phrases. Acting erratically. Refuse commands. Became combative. Officer safety. I want frequency counts and charts. Janet already had pages marked. 86% of Mercer's reports use those 4 terms. Daniels and Price follow the same pattern. Pierce flipped the sheets. A script. Standardized lies to sell in court. This will be presented on the record. Ellison leaned forward. Alana, you're both judge and victim. This puts you at risk. A recusal motion is inevitable. Pierce shook her head. If I step back, it gets buried. If I continue, it lives. I won't hand this over to be killed in committee. Ellison didn't argue. He only said, then you need federal reinforcement fast. An IT officer entered with a drive. We recovered Mercer's deleted body cam files. The automatic cloud backup preserved them. Full timeline, uncut. Pierce didn't hesitate. Secure copies. Label them. Delivered to DOJ on arrival. The officer left immediately. Pierce looked at Reed again. Warrants for phone seizures. Every officer in that unit. Daniels, Price, Mercer, Lowell. Draft them now. Reed nodded and moved. Janet added. There are internal emails, too. Mercer to Daniels and Price. Same phrasing. They call it the script. Sergeant Lowell replied, telling them to keep language consistent. Print them, Pierce ordered. That goes on the record. Ellison's phone buzzed. He glanced at it. The press is waiting outside. They know something has happened. Cameras are lined up on the steps. They wait, Pierce said. The courtroom transcript speaks first. Phones in the gallery will be locked down. No unofficial recordings. This goes out under federal seal. She stood, adjusted her robe, and picked up the gavel. When we return, this will not be an arraignment. It will be a tribunal. All officers connected to Mercer's unit will appear. Tonight, no exceptions. Ellison looked uneasy. And if they refuse? Pierce's reply was sharp. Then they go into contempt. Simple. Reed returned with more papers. She signed without slowing. Deliver them. Bring the officers in. Janet packed the charts. We'll have everything displayed. Statistics. Complaints. Emails. It's all cross-referenced. Pierce moved toward the door. The robe flowed around her, but her voice was all business. Reed, announce it properly. Everyone needs to hear the words. He nodded. Yes, Your Honor. They opened the chamber door. The sound of the crowded gallery rolled in. Every seat filled. Dozens of faces turned toward her. Reed's voice boomed. All rise. The crowd stood. The Honorable Judge Alana Pierce presiding. Pierce walked back to the bench, sat, and spoke without pause. This court is no longer an arraignment. It is now a special tribunal. Effective immediately, every officer tied to Mercer's unit is ordered to appear before this court tonight. She raised the gavel and struck hard. So ordered. The echo cut through the noise. No one in the room moved. The summons went out fast. Deputies moved through the building with signed orders. By the time court resumed, a line of officers stood waiting. 10 in total, all linked to Mercer's unit. Some in uniform, some called in from off-duty. Pierce entered. Reed's announcement was short and firm. The gallery stood, then sat again. Pierce looked over the line of officers. You are all here under court order. This tribunal is convened to examine misconduct, coordinated reporting, and perjury tied to Officer Mercer's unit. Every statement you make will be under oath. No one answered. Names for the record, Pierce demanded. Each officer gave a name. Daniels, Price, Turner, Wallace, O'Neill, 6 more. Pierce nodded. All sworn. She opened a folder. This morning we introduced video evidence. It showed assault. It showed lies. It showed officers laughing while crimes occurred. Now we turn to documents. She held up a chart. 86% of reports from this unit contain identical phrasing. Acting erratically, refused commands, became combative, posed officer safety threat. Every defendant described the same way. Explain. No one spoke. Pierce pointed at Daniels. You first. Why is your language identical to Mercer's? Daniels hesitated. That's how we were told to write it. By whom? Sergeant Lowell. Pierce looked at Price. Do you confirm? Yes. She turned to Turner. Do you confirm? Yes, Your Honor. She set the chart down. So, the pattern is acknowledged. Reports were scripted. Cases built on false templates. All under Lowell's supervision. Lowell shifted in his chair. We just wanted consistency. Pierce snapped back. Consistency or fabrication? Answer directly. Lowell fell silent. Pierce pulled another file. Internal emails. Mercer to Daniels and Price. Play the script. Court buys it every time. Lowell replied. Keep language consistent. Keeps cases clean. These are your words. Do you deny sending or receiving them? No one denied. Let the record show silence is taken as admission, Pierce said. She looked at the ADA. Ms. Hart, were these communications disclosed to defense attorneys in past trials? Hart shook her head. No. Pierce cut in. That is a Brady violation. Every defendant has the right to know the state's witnesses were using scripts. Your office withheld it. Hart tried to speak, but Pierce raised her hand. Sit. You'll be heard later. She turned back to the officers. Now the numbers. 1,100 arrests. 469 dismissed. 47 complaints. Millions in settlements. None of you thought this raised red flags. Wallace spoke up. We were told the complaints never stuck. Internal affairs always cleared him. Pierce pressed. So you knew the complaints existed. You knew the language was copied. You continued anyway. and prosecutors presented your reports as truth. The officers stayed silent. Pierce leaned forward. This is conspiracy. Multiple officers, one pattern, same lies. You are all part of it. She looked at Reed. Seize every phone in this room. Transfer to DOJ. Reed and two deputies moved quickly. Phones were collected, logged, bagged. Pierce continued. Until DOJ arrives, this court will hold you under oath. Any false answer will be perjury. Any refusal will be contempt. She faced O'Neill. Did you ever witness Mercer fabricate probable cause? O'Neill hesitated. Yes. Traffic stop, 2021. He said the driver reached under the seat. He didn't. I was there. Pierce asked sharply. Did you report it? No. Why not? Because nothing ever happened to him. The gallery murmured. Pierce went down the line. Turner, did you ever see Mercer falsify resistance? Yes. Wallace? Yes. O'Neill already answered yes. Daniels? Yes. Price? Yes. The admissions stacked up. Pierce wrote notes as each spoke. The record now contains multiple first-hand acknowledgments of fabrication. That alone is grounds for indictment. Mercer sat slumped, head down, listening to every word. Pierce raised her voice. You all stood by while this script sent people to jail. You all lied on the record. That ends here. DOJ will take custody. Every case tied to this unit will be reopened. She struck the gavel once. This tribunal is in recess until federal agents arrive. No officer leaves this building. The echo carried through the gallery. No one moved. The doors opened. Special Agent Lauren Hayes of the DOJ Civil Rights Division walked in with two other agents. They carried sealed cases and ID badges visible. Reed announced their presence. Everyone in the gallery stood, then sat again. Pierce spoke first. Agents, the tribunal is in session. Witnesses under oath. Evidence preserved. You have full authority. Hayes, step forward. Thank you, Your Honor. Effective immediately, the Department of Justice assumes joint custody of these proceedings under federal mandate. She turned toward the line of officers. Remain where you are. This is now a federal investigation. Mercer looked up for the first time, his voice hoarse. I want a lawyer. Hayes didn't blink. You have one. He's sitting next to you, and he's not stopping what comes next. She placed a folder on the table. We've reviewed recovered body cam backups. Mercer, these are your words at 8:47 a.m. today. Quote, time to teach her a lesson. Do you deny this? Mercer shook his head slowly. I don't remember. Pierce interjected sharply. Video shows you saying it. Audio is clear. Denial is perjury. Hayes pressed harder. You lied under oath in this court. You claimed the defendant, Judge Pierce, was trespassing. You claimed she resisted. Explain why your body cam shows none of that. Mercer said nothing. His attorney whispered in his ear, but Mercer stayed silent. Hayes turned to Daniels. You were present. Did you see any trespass? Daniels swallowed hard. No. Did you see resistance? No. Then why did you testify otherwise? Daniels whispered. Because Mercer told us to. Hayes marked it down. She moved to Price. Same questions. Trespass? Resistance? Price shook his head. No, ma'am. Why did you lie? Price answered, because that's how it always worked. Mercer ran the scene. We backed him. Hayes didn't react. She looked at Turner. You admitted earlier you saw Mercer falsify resistance in a 2021 stop. Did you ever write the same script in your own reports? Turner nodded. Yes, everyone did. We were told to keep it consistent. Hayes opened another folder. Sergeant Lowell, March 12, 2022. Email. Document it the same way. Standard language. Keeps cases clean. You wrote this. Lowell hesitated. Yes, but I meant. Pierce cut in. You meant fabrication. That is what you ordered. That is what they followed. Hayes didn't give him time. Sergeant, you instructed officers to falsify reports. That's conspiracy. Federal offense. Do you deny? Lowell shook his head. Finally. No. The gallery buzzed with whispers. The stenographer typed furiously. Hayes turned back to Mercer. You have 47 complaints. Everyone dismissed. 469 dismissed cases. Hundreds of defendants processed on false statements. Do you deny the numbers? Mercer muttered, People always lie. Suspects always lie. Pierce snapped, but the video didn't lie. Your own body cam didn't lie. You did. Hayes placed another exhibit on the table. This is the county payout ledger. $2.7 million in settlements tied to your conduct. That is not suspects lying. That is taxpayers paying for you. Mercer said nothing. Hayes raised her voice. Every officer in this room, listen carefully. DOJ is preparing indictments. Perjury, conspiracy, deprivation of civil rights, obstruction. You have one chance to cooperate. Tell the truth now, or face maximum exposure later. Turner broke first. We all used the script. Mercer told us. Lowell told us to back him. Internal Affairs never touched it. ADA's office knew and ignored it. Price followed. I confirm that. Daniels added, me too. Wallace said we all did it. Every arrest. Same words. Hayes looked at them one by one. All noted for the record. She faced Hart at the prosecution table. Your office received these reports. Did you ever question why every defendant was described the same way? Hart's voice cracked. We trusted the officers. Pierce cut in. Trust without verification is negligence. Failure to disclose is misconduct. Hayes nodded. Your office is now under review. DOJ will subpoena your case files. Hart sat down, speechless. Hayes returned her attention to Mercer. Officer Mercer, last chance. Do you admit that you assaulted Judge Pierce without cause and fabricated your testimony? Mercer's face twitched. His attorney whispered urgently. Finally, Mercer spoke. Yes, I hit her. Yes, I lied. I thought I could cover it. I always covered it before. The gallery erupted with gasps. The stenographer kept typing. Pierce leaned forward. The admission is on the record. You assaulted a federal judge. You committed perjury. You conspired with your unit. You will face the consequences. Hayes closed the folder. This tribunal is adjourned until formal federal charges are filed. All officers remain in custody. Pierce struck the gavel hard. So ordered. The room was silent except for the echo. The recess ended after 20 minutes. The doors opened again. Special Agent Hayes returned with 2 federal attorneys and a heavy folder marked with the DOJ seal. The room fell silent. Reed announced them formally. Pierce straightened in the chair. Proceed. Hayes set the folder on the bench. Your Honor, the Department of Justice now files indictments based on the evidence reviewed during recess. All defendants have been advised of their rights. The charges are federal. She opened the folder. First, Officer Richard Mercer. Indicted on 4 counts. Assault on a federal judge. Perjury under oath. Obstruction of justice. Deprivation of civil rights under color of law. She read slowly, each word recorded by the stenographer. Maximum penalties include 25 years in federal prison. Reed took the papers, logged them, and handed copies to Mercer's attorney. Mercer sat motionless, eyes down. Hayes turned a page. Second, Sergeant Lowell. Indicted for conspiracy to obstruct justice, directing subordinates to falsify reports and destruction of evidence. Maximum penalties, 15 years. Lowell's jaw clenched, but he said nothing. Third, Officer Daniels. Indicted for perjury and conspiracy. Maximum penalty, 10 years. Fourth, Officer Price. Same charges, same penalty. Fifth, Officer Turner. Indicted for conspiracy and false reporting. Sixth, Officer Wallace. Indicted for conspiracy. Seventh, Officer O'Neill. Indicted for conspiracy. All remain in federal custody. She looked up. Further indictments are being prepared for supervisors and prosecutors who knowingly relied on falsified reports. Pierce struck the gavel once. Indictments entered. All defendants remanded pending transfer to federal marshals. Reed walked down the line, rechecking each cuff. He wrote property tags on evidence bags. Pierce turned toward the prosecution table. Ms. Hart, you presented Mercer's testimony as fact. You failed to disclose complaint records. You failed to challenge the pattern. Under Brady obligations, that is misconduct. This court refers you to the State Bar for disciplinary proceedings. Hart tried to speak. Your Honor, we trusted the officers. Pierce cut her off. Trust without verification is negligence. Negligence that cost hundreds of people their liberty. That will not be excused. Hayes opened another binder. DOJ audit shows 432 cases tied directly to Mercer's reports. Over 100 convictions already overturned. Dozens of civil suits pending. Settlements totaling $2.7 million have been paid by the county. She placed the figures on the evidence table. These numbers prove systemic abuse. Pierce nodded. Effective immediately, every case involving Mercer's unit is reopened. Convictions are vacated pending review. Defendants currently incarcerated shall be scheduled for hearings within 7 days. Prosecutors must file responses or dismiss charges. This tribunal orders the creation of a task force to supervise the process. The gallery stirred. Reporters scribbled notes. Former defendants shifted in their seats, some whispering to each other. Hayes continued. The DOJ Civil Rights Division will coordinate with this court. Independent counsel will be assigned. Victims of wrongful convictions will be notified and compensated. Pierce looked directly at the row of officers. You use the same words in every report. Acting erratically, verbally aggressive. Threatened officers' safety. The same script. For 15 years you recycled lies. You believed repetition would turn falsehood into truth. It ends here. Mercer finally raised his head. His voice cracked. I never thought it would come this far. We did what we were told. That's how the job worked. Pierce's reply was sharp. No, the job is to protect rights, not destroy them. You turned the badge into a weapon. That choice was yours. Hayes looked back down at her notes. Financial liability will extend. DOJ is filing to recover federal funds misused through fraudulent policing. County budgets will be restructured. Police overtime tied to false arrests will be clawed back. Pierce struck the gavel again. So ordered. Records will be public. Hart buried her face in her hands. Several officers slumped in their chairs. The gallery buzzed with low voices until Pierce's stare silenced them. She spoke firmly. This tribunal was convened because one officer thought he could assault a woman outside a courthouse. That officer discovered his victim was a federal judge. But this case is larger than me. It is about hundreds who were silenced. Today their voices return. She held up the binder of old cases. For every name in this book, there will be a hearing. For every family torn apart, there will be review. For every lie written, there will be a record corrected. That is not optional. It is mandatory. Hayes added, every officer here will be called before a federal grand jury. Your words today are on record. Cooperation may reduce penalties. Silence will not protect you. Turner spoke quietly. We already admitted it. We followed Mercer. We backed him. We signed what Lowell told us to sign. Hayes replied, your admissions are noted. They will be used at sentencing. Pierce tapped the bench. This court recognizes the courage of those who chose to tell the truth. But the damage you caused remains. Justice will be delivered in full measure. Hayes closed the folder. Marshals will arrive within the hour. Defendants will be transported tonight. The DOJ will issue a public statement tomorrow. Pierce lifted the gavel one final time. Court stands adjourned. Indictments filed. Cases reopened. Justice is no longer delayed. The gavel struck. The sound was final, echoing through the chamber. The system that had protected Mercer for years had collapsed in one morning. The next morning, the courthouse lobby filled before sunrise. Word had spread. Former defendants, family members, attorneys, and reporters gathered as the tribunal resumed. Pierce entered in full robes. Reed announced her. Everyone stood. Hayes and 2 federal marshals followed. Pierce opened. This court is reconvened. Yesterday indictments were filed. Today we begin release hearings for those wrongfully convicted under Mercer's reports. Reed brought forward the first file. Case number 14 to 209. Defendant Marcus Green. Convicted of resisting arrest and narcotics possession. Arresting officer, Mercer. Marcus stepped into the courtroom in shackles, escorted from county jail. His mother sat in the gallery, trembling. Pierce addressed him. Mr. Green, the DOJ has reviewed your case. Body cam evidence recovered shows no narcotics, no resistance. Do you understand what this means? Marcus nodded. Yes, Your Honor. Pierce struck the gavel. Conviction vacated. Immediate release ordered. All records expunged. Compensation hearing scheduled. The gallery erupted in applause. Marshals removed his cuffs. His mother rushed forward crying. Reed restored order. Hayes, read the next file. Case number 15 to 731. Defendant Rosa Delgado. Charged with disorderly conduct. Arresting officer, Mercer. Incident dismissed as unsubstantiated complaint. Yet records show she was hospitalized after the arrest. An elderly woman with a cane stepped forward. Pierce asked her, "Mrs. Delgado, do you wish to testify?" She spoke quietly. "He slammed me against my car. I was 63. They said I made it up." Pierce's voice was firm. "Your conviction is vacated. This court recognizes your complaint as substantiated. The DOJ will pursue civil action for damages." Hayes added, "You will receive federal victim assistance." Delgado nodded, tears in her eyes. Reed brought another file. Case number 18 to 442. Defendant Jamal Washington. Convicted of possession. Arresting officer, Mercer. Case dismissed later for lack of evidence. Defendant served 6 months before release. Jamal, now in his 20s, stepped forward. "They planted it. I told everyone. Nobody listened." Pierce looked at him directly. "Your record is cleared. This court acknowledges the planting of evidence. Federal review will proceed for compensation." Jamal clenched his fists but kept his composure. "Thank you, Your Honor. Took long enough." Case after case came forward, each one tied to Mercer, each one vacated, each order struck with the gavel. Names, numbers, charges, all unraveled. By noon, 30 convictions had been overturned. Reporters filled notebooks. Cameras flashed outside. Pierce paused. This court will continue through every case. No one will be overlooked. No one will remain silenced. Hayes rose. The DOJ confirms. Over 400 files will be reviewed. All victims will be contacted. All hearings scheduled. This process will not stop until complete. In a gallery, families hugged. Some wept. Some shouted thanks. Others sat in stunned silence, finally hearing what they had begged for years ago. Pierce turned to address them directly. "This is justice delayed, not denied. Your pain is on record. Your truth is recognized. The lies that held you are dismantled. This court will see every wrong corrected." The gallery stood and applauded. Reed restored order again. Pierce resumed. "Financial restitution will come. County officials are ordered to open records of settlements and allocate funds for compensation. DOJ oversight will ensure compliance." Hayes added, "Civil suits will proceed. Federal law guarantees damages for wrongful convictions. Victims will have legal representation provided." One man shouted from the gallery, "What about the officers who ruined our lives?" Pierce answered without hesitation. "They face trial. They face prison. Their impunity ended the moment they stepped into this tribunal." The room went quiet. She continued, "We are not only correcting convictions. We are dismantling the structure that allowed this. Supervisors, prosecutors, entire chains of command will answer for their part." By afternoon, more names were called. Dozens walked out free. Marshals cut shackles, handed over paperwork, led them to waiting families. Outside, reporters swarmed. Headlines were already drafted. Hundreds freed after judges' shocking tribunal. Mercer unit collapses under federal indictment. Justice finally delivered. Inside, Pierce closed the final file of the day. "This tribunal stands in recess until tomorrow morning. We will continue until every file is addressed." She struck the gavel. The echo carried into the lobby where freed defendants walked past cameras into the sunlight. For the first time in years, the doors of the courthouse opened not to condemn, but to release. By the next day, the courthouse steps were crowded. News vans lined the block. Reporters held microphones as families of the released defendants stood shoulder to shoulder. One journalist spoke live. "Yesterday, Judge Pierce vacated 30 wrongful convictions tied to Mercer's unit. Today, the releases continue. The community is calling it the largest justice reversal in state history." Marcus Green stepped to the podium with his mother beside him. "I lost 3 years of my life. Mercer said I fought him. The video showed I didn't. They put me in a cell anyway. Today I walked out. I want everyone to know the truth matters. Applause rippled through the crowd. Next, Rosa Delgado took the microphone. Her cane shook in her hand. They said I was lying. They said an old woman couldn't be trusted. Now the court says I was telling the truth all along. I want every officer who laughed at me to see my face today. Cameras flashed. Reporters shouted questions. One asked, "Do you trust the system now?" She answered flatly, "I trust Judge Pierce, not the system." Not yet. Behind her, Jamal Washington spoke. I was 17. They said I had drugs. They wrote it in a report. I lost 6 months. They call me a liar. Now I'm here. Free. Don't tell me to move on. Tell them to pay for what they did. The crowd roared approval. Inside the courthouse, Pierce convened again. Hayes presented updates. 52 convictions vacated. Another 80 reviewed. Hundreds more pending. Federal marshals have begun transporting indicted officers to secure facilities. Mercer is in federal custody. Pierce looked at the gallery. This court confirms. Every reopened case will be expedited. No file will sit on a shelf. No victim will wait in silence again. A hand rose from the press section. Judge Pierce, is this tribunal permanent? Pierce answered, as long as needed. Justice requires endurance. This court will not dissolve until its work is complete. Outside, politicians gathered. State Senator Albright faced the cameras. What we are seeing is unprecedented. The exposure of systemic abuse demands sweeping reform. Legislation will be introduced within weeks. A reporter pressed, "Why now? Why not years ago when complaints piled up?" Albright hesitated. Because the evidence was hidden. Because oversight failed. That changes now. Another politician, Councilwoman Reyes, was sharper. Let's not pretend. The complaints were there. The payouts were public record. Everyone looked away until a federal judge got assaulted. That's the truth. The statement sparked murmurs and headlines. Later that afternoon, the Department of Justice held its own press conference. Hayes stood at a podium with the federal seal behind her. Mercer and his unit operated unchecked for 15 years. That ends. Indictments are filed. Investigations are ongoing. Supervisors and prosecutors complicit in this misconduct will also face review. No one is immune. A reporter asked, "Does this include the district attorney's office?" Hayes answered directly, "Yes. Every level of authority is under scrutiny." Back inside, Pierce signed another stack of orders. Each signature vacated another conviction. Reed stamped them. The pile grew. One former inmate shouted from the gallery, "Judge Pierce, thank you. You gave me my life back." Pierce replied calmly, "Justice gave you your life back. My role is to ensure it reaches you." By evening, national networks carried the story. Headlines scrolled, "Federal judge turns tables on corrupt police unit. Hundreds freed after years of lies. Justice system shaken at core." Commentators debated on air. One said, "This is accountability at a scale we rarely see." Another added, "The question now is whether reforms will last." In the community, vigils formed. Families lit candles for years lost. Church leaders opened halls for those released. Civil rights lawyers handed out cards, promising representation. At City Hall, protesters gathered. Signs read, "No more scripts and justice delayed." Too long chants filled the streets. Reopen every case. Fire every liar. Pierce watched the coverage from chambers late that night. Reed brought her a final update. 175 files scheduled for tomorrow. "We'll need a longer docket." Pierce nodded. "Schedule it. We move until it's done." Reed asked, "Do you realize the scale? This is bigger than any tribunal in state history." Pierce answered flatly, "It has to be. Nothing less will break the pattern." By the third day, the tribunal room was overflowing. Reed had to restrict entry. Only defendants, families, attorneys, and accredited press could stay. Pierce opened with authority. "This session continues. DOJ has new findings." Hayes stepped forward. She held another binder, thicker than the last. "Our review shows Mercer's misconduct wasn't isolated. Orders came from supervisors. Case files confirm cover-ups extended to the district attorney's office." She flipped a page. Sergeant Lowell's emails showed direct instruction to falsify reports. But above him, Captain Rowe signed off on every internal affairs dismissal. 27 in total. Murmurs ran through the gallery. Pierce struck the gavel. Silence. Let her finish. Hayes, read on. Rowe reported directly to Deputy Chief Alvarez. Evidence shows Alvarez overruled investigators who tried to pursue Mercer. He wrote, and I quote, "Don't open old wounds. Dismiss and move on." Reporters scribbled furiously. Hayes closed the binder. The DOJ now recommends federal indictments for Rowe and Alvarez for obstruction and conspiracy. Reed took the documents and logged them. Pierce's voice was sharp. So ordered. Warrants authorized. Federal custody applies. Hayes wasn't finished. She lifted another folder. The DA's office also failed. Emails show Assistant DA Keller received at least 6 citizen complaints citing Mercer's false reports. Keller dismissed them, calling complainants habitual liars. Yet settlement records prove those claims had merit. Keller's name appears on plea bargains where defendants were coerced with threats of harsher charges if they didn't accept deals. Hart, still at the table, went pale. Pierce asked coldly, "Does the DOJ recommend charges?" Hayes answered, "Yes." Keller faces charges of prosecutorial misconduct, conspiracy, and civil rights violations. Further review is underway for senior staff. The gallery gasped. Pierce nodded. Then this court issues referral. Federal prosecutors will proceed. Hart stood suddenly. "Your Honor, I didn't know about Keller's actions." Pierce looked directly at her. "Ignorance is not a shield. You were the line prosecutor on half of Mercer's cases. Your duty was to challenge, not to accept blindly. That failure remains on record." Hayes added, "More indictments are likely. Supervisors who signed plea agreements under false pretenses will face inquiry." Reed entered the new names into the record. Pierce turned to the gallery. "Understand this. Corruption never stops with one officer. It spreads upward, outward, until entire offices are infected. That is why this tribunal does not end with Mercer. It ends when every hand that touched these lies is exposed." She called Reed for the next order. He brought forward a thick ledger. Pierce read aloud. Financial audit shows over $8 million allocated to settlements tied to Mercer's unit. Most came from taxpayer funds diverted from education and housing. This court orders the county treasurer to account for every payout and identify the officials who signed them. Hayes confirmed. Treasurer's records are under subpoena. Federal auditors are reviewing already. A reporter raised a hand. "Judge Pierce, are you suggesting elected officials may also face charges?" Pierce answered directly. "Yes. If their signatures facilitated cover-ups, they're complicit." The gallery buzzed again. Families leaned forward. Reporters tapped on phones to push breaking headlines. Hayes then announced, "Effective today, DOJ oversight extends to the entire police department. Every officer's case history is under review. Patterns of identical language will be flagged. Supervisors who approved reports without verification will be held accountable." Pierce struck the gavel. "So ordered. No file will be ignored." One attorney rose from the defense side. "Your Honor, what about those still incarcerated? Hundreds remain inside while reviews drag on." Pierce replied, "Priority is given. Every week, dozens more will walk free. But each case must be checked carefully. Justice requires speed, but also accuracy." Hayes added, "Federal marshals will assist with expedited releases. Wrongfully convicted defendants will not remain in custody longer than necessary." The attorney nodded, satisfied. Pierce leaned forward again. "Today is not just about freeing the innocent. It is about rebuilding trust. That means confronting rot in every corner of the system. If it means prosecutors face trial, so be it. If it means elected officials lose office, so be it. The integrity of justice is not negotiable." The gallery rose in applause. Reed restored order quickly. Hayes closed with one more announcement. The DOJ is expanding. A federal grand jury has been convened. Subpoenas are already being served to police commanders, DA staff, and county officials. This tribunal will work in tandem until the grand jury completes its process. Pierce struck the gavel a final time. "So recorded. This tribunal remains in session until its mandate is fulfilled. Court is adjourned. As the room emptied, news alerts hit every phone. DOJ indicts police commanders. Prosecutors face charges in Mercer scandal. County officials under investigation. The net was no longer around one officer. It had widened to engulf an entire system. The courtroom filled again. Reporters fought for seats. Families of freed defendants lined the back. Reed announced the session. Pierce entered in robes. Hayes and 2 federal prosecutors followed. Pierce opened. This tribunal continues. Defendants include senior command staff and prosecutorial officers. Reed called the first name. Captain Rowe. Rowe walked in under guard, hands cuffed. His uniform was gone, replaced by a plain suit. He sat at the defense table, eyes hard. Hayes stood. Captain Rowe, you oversaw Mercer's unit from 2015 to 2022. Internal affairs complaints crossed your desk. 27 were closed on your signature. Every one marked unsubstantiated. Do you deny this? Rowe spoke firmly. I followed procedure. IA reports lacked corroboration. Hayes opened a file. Exhibit 221. Email dated May 14th, 2019. You wrote, dismiss it. Mercer gets results. Don't cripple the unit. That is not procedure. That is obstruction. Rowe stayed silent. Pierce leaned forward. Answer the question. Rowe finally muttered. Yes, I wrote it. Hayes nodded. Then you admit you protected Mercer despite repeated complaints. Rowe said nothing. Reed entered the statement into record. Next came Deputy Chief Alvarez. He walked slowly, lips pressed tight. Hayes spoke. Deputy Chief, you personally overruled 2 IA investigations. You wrote, don't open old wounds. Close the case. Do you deny? Alvarez cleared his throat. Those were management decisions. Morale was at stake. Pierce cut in. Morale does not override law. You buried evidence. That is conspiracy. Alvarez tried again. I relied on my captains. Hayes dropped another exhibit. Exhibit 237. Meeting minutes, July 2020. You told subordinates, keep Mercer clean. He brings numbers. Don't let complaints stick. You said those words. Are you denying? Alvarez went pale. No. Pierce struck the gavel. Admission recorded. Conspiracy established. Then Reed called the next name. Assistant District Attorney Keller. Keller stepped in, suit wrinkled, escorted by marshals. He sat with his attorney. Hayes addressed him. Mr. Keller, 6 separate complaints cited Mercer's falsified reports. You dismissed all. In one email you wrote, defendants lie. Mercer is solid. Don't waste my docket. Do you deny this? Keller shook his head. I believe the officers. Pierce's tone sharpened. Belief is not evidence. You had a duty to test their claims. Instead, you pressure defendants into plea deals based on false reports. That is prosecutorial misconduct. Hayes opened another file. Exhibit 249. Transcript of plea negotiation. You told defendant Jamal Washington, age 17, that if he refused to plead guilty, you would seek 10 years. Body cam later proved no crime occurred. Do you deny this? Keller whispered no. Gasps rippled through the gallery. Hayes pressed harder. Do you understand you coerced a minor into pleading guilty on fabricated charges? Keller lowered his head. Yes. Pierce's gavel came down. Admission entered. Misconduct confirmed. One reporter whispered, they're all falling. Reed called the next witness. Former Internal Affairs Director Monroe. Monroe sat stiffly. Hayes questioned him. Your office logged 47 complaints. You closed every one. Your notes read, pattern insufficient. No sustained evidence. Yet now we know video existed. Did you search? Monroe hesitated. We relied on officer statements. Pierce asked coldly, so your job was to investigate officers, yet you only asked officers. Is it your defense? Monroe's face tightened. Yes. Pierce shook her head. That is not investigation. That is collaboration. Hayes added, DOJ now files obstruction charges against Monroe. He faces federal indictment. Monroe's lawyer objected, but Pierce overruled. Entered. The gallery erupted again. Families of victims cheered. Reporters typed furiously. Hayes turned back to the bench. Your Honor, Today's testimony proves misconduct reached command and prosecution. This is systemic. DOJ seeks immediate referral of all named individuals to federal custody. Pierce looked down the row of accused. Captain Rowe, Deputy Chief Alvarez, ADA Keller, Director Monroe, you failed your duty. You buried truth. You destroyed lives. This tribunal orders you remanded pending indictment. Reed motioned. Marshall stepped in, cuffing each one. Keller shook, muttering. Rowe stared straight ahead. Alvarez whispered to himself. Monroe looked ready to collapse. Pierce struck the gavel. So ordered. Hayes added one more point. This corruption spread because accountability was absent. From today, federal oversight will cover every division. Independent monitors will review complaints. No report will close without external verification. Pierce turned to the gallery. To every victim who waited years, know this tribunal will not stop. We will pull every root until the ground is clean. Applause broke out. Reed shouted for order, but Pierce let it stand for a moment. She closed. Tomorrow this tribunal will deliver its final session. Indictments are filed. Supervisors face custody. Prosecutors face discipline. But justice requires closure. That closure comes next. The gavel struck. Court adjourned. The final day arrived. The courthouse was packed. National media filled every row. Families of freed defendants stood shoulder to shoulder with attorneys and activists. Reed called the session to order. Pierce entered in full robes. Hayes and federal prosecutors sat ready. Marshals guarded the defendants. Pierce opened. This tribunal reconvenes for its final session. Over the last week, we have vacated 186 wrongful convictions. We have entered indictments against Mercer, his unit, their supervisors, and complicit prosecutors. Today, we deliver closure. She raised a thick binder. This document contains orders to vacate every conviction tied to Mercer's unit. 432 cases in total. Each one is now formally overturned. Each record is expunged. Each name is cleared. The gallery erupted. Applause thundered. Reed shouted for silence. Pierce let it echo, then struck the gavel. Hayes rose. The Department of Justice confirms. Every case will be reopened. Compensation hearings are scheduled. Federal monitors will ensure compliance. Civil suits are authorized. Victims will be paid for years stolen. She placed papers on the record. Mercer remains indicted on 4 federal counts. Trial dates set. Rowe, Alvarez, Keller, Monroe also indicted. Trials pending. All remain in federal custody. Pierce turned to the row of shackled men. You claimed authority. You claimed discretion. You claimed to protect. Instead, you destroyed lives. Today, the system you corrupted turns on you. She struck the gavel again. Your bail is denied. You remain remanded. Reporters scribbled furiously. Cameras clicked nonstop. Pierce continued. This tribunal also issues orders for reform. First, every complaint filed against law enforcement will be reviewed by an independent civilian board. Second, body cam footage will be preserved automatically, with no possibility of deletion. Third, prosecutors must disclose all settlement records when assessing credibility. Fourth, financial payouts for misconduct will be drawn from police budgets, not taxpayer general funds. Hayes confirmed. DOJ oversight begins immediately. Federal monitors will embed in the department for 5 years minimum. Noncompliance will trigger federal receivership. Pierce turned to the gallery. These reforms are not optional. They are law from this moment. The gallery rose in applause again. Pierce addressed the victims directly. Marcus Green, Rosa Delgado, Jamal Washington, every one of you who is silenced. This record now speaks for you. Your names are restored. Your dignity is recognized. Your truth is written in law. Families wept openly. Some shouted thanks. Others stood silently, fists raised. A reporter called out, "Judge Pierce, what do you say to those who lost faith in justice?" Pierce answered flatly, "Justice delayed is justice denied. But justice delivered is justice restored. Today, restoration begins." Hayes stepped back to the podium. This is not only about one city. The DOJ is expanding investigations statewide. Other units with similar patterns will be reviewed. Mercer's downfall sets precedent. Every officer, every prosecutor, every supervisor is now on notice. Lies will not stand. Pierce nodded. Let that be recorded. This tribunal's work here ends, but its impact will not. She closed the binder. Final orders are signed. Indictments stand. Convictions overturned. Reforms in place. This tribunal is adjourned. She struck the gavel one last time. The sound carried through the packed chamber, down the hall, and out onto the courthouse steps where crowds waited. Outside, freed defendants held their release papers high. Families cheered. Protesters waved signs. Justice won today. Never again. News anchors declared it live. The Pierce Tribunal has concluded. Hundreds freed. Dozens indicted. The largest corruption case in state history ends with systemic reform. That night, national broadcasts replayed the gavel strike. Clips of Pierce declaring convictions vacated trended across every platform. Within weeks, settlement funds were distributed. Families received long-awaited restitution. Officers sat in federal cells awaiting trial. Prosecutors faced bar discipline. 6 months later, a bronze plaque was mounted outside the courthouse. It read, "Here, justice was restored. The Pierce Tribunal, Year 1." And for the first time in decades, the community believed that justice, however delayed, had finally spoken with force.